for joining us on another edition of Lunch Out Loud Ottawa. My name is Nick Wachowski.
I'm Andrew Miller.
And before we get to our special guest, Mike Spencer Bown, of course, we are the podcast that talks to the people, places, events, and music of Ottawa that make it the incredible city that it is. Why don't we check this out?
Hey guys, what's up? This is Tiff from Tindervox. You're going to be listening to 3 of our tracks from our debut album on Lunch Out Loud Ottawa, Ease Rib, Glowworm and Sirens. The album will be out early next year, and our next instalment will be amongst the talented bunch of artists playing at the Avant-Garde on the 21st of December. Hope you like them. Cheers.
So the band you heard there was Tindervox. So hopefully you can make it out and see them on December the 21st at the Avant-Garde. It's an excellent venue. You get some good Russian posters on the wall, some good Russian beer. It's a very quaint little place down in the market. That song was Glowworm Killer. So now we have the privilege to be joined with Mike Spencer Bown, who is the most traveled man on earth. So possibly the most countries, at some reports at 195, but definitely in terms of 23 years straight of traveling, backpacking.
That's got to be amazing.
Yeah, it's been my entire adult life, nothing but backpacking. So I've lived out of a backpack my whole life. And every day camping, hostels.
You just can't sit still, can you?
I guess not. Yeah. It's been pretty good roaming around.
Well, that's good. How long have you been back in Ottawa now for?
A couple of weeks, I think it is. But I've had to do a lot of media stuff. There's been kind of a media storm. So I've been dealing with that so much that I haven't really had as much time as I'd like to sort of relax, have some beers, walk around.
How did that start? The media, who contacted who to get this story out?
It started in Ireland, actually. So Ireland was my last country. So I've been cultivating that country as a last one because I wanted to make sure I had kind of an easy country for my last one, to celebrate.
Yeah.
I didn't want something like South Sudan. South Sudan's a nice country, but I didn't want that as kind of a stressful last country, something like that.
A little nicer to have some pints in Ireland at the end, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So I saved this very, very nice, easy to celebrate country. But when I was coming across on the boat, a Norwegian filmmaker who had earlier done a film with me when I was about to float down the Amazon many years before had noticed, and he came over to film me stepping off the boat. And then he called someone from the Irish News, and they came and said, can we do a news report? And then from there they said, we really like your news report. Do you want to do talk radio? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll go in there. And then from the talk radio, people called in, and they were suggesting that I go here and there and everywhere in Ireland and said, here's free hotels or kayaking or mountain climbing. So I did an entirely free Ireland trip.
So a little more, did you hear about the guy that went round the Ireland with the fridge?
I did, yeah. I heard
that's an interesting book as well.
Fun.
And movie, I think, as well.
Yeah, people were telling me about that book and movie. I didn't have a chance to read it, but it sounds pretty fun. Yeah, but Ireland was great. The people there really know how to party.
Yeah, that's it, Jay.
But sometimes I'd have to hide out. Like sometimes, even though I was offered all these free posh hotels, I would go and hide in a hostel and not even tell my name because the Irish were buying so many drinks. I was afraid for my liver. It was like a pub crawl every night for the first 10.
Could really have been the last country.
Yeah, I guess
so. Were you more of a Guinness guy or a Beamish guy out there?
I was drinking mostly Guinness, but I had the various other kinds as well.
Did you like Cork, Ring of Fire? I went to school in Ireland, so I knew it pretty well, traveling around.
Yeah, I was in Cork quite a few times. I think 4 times I went through there. I was up on top of that Shannon Church Tower, doing a documentary for charity up there by the ironically the 4 Liars, those 4 clocks up there. And they wanted me to do a documentary there about what I'd seen of technological change around the world. So did that. It was so much fun. I did Blarney Castle as well, filming there.
Galway's an excellent city.
Yeah, I was all around Galway as well. I went up to the islands there where they filmed that. Father Ted is meant to be set there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ireland, it was the start of all this media attention, and then it's just carried on. So I was I'm answering questions from all around the world. I mean, someone who Googled me would know more about me than I know. Because they'd see the answers to 300 or 400 questions that I can't even remember myself. If they were to memorize.
Oh, that's great.
So hopefully we can ask some questions that are a little different, especially some pertaining with Ottawa to start off. So it's been a while since you've been back from Ottawa. What have you been able to see any kind of major changes? Anything that stuck out to you and you go, wow, this is actually the city I've spent time here before. And these are some major changes. This is a lot different than
Okay, well, what I notice is that every so often a hole appears in the ground, a gigantic one. There's a whole bunch of men down it. Then next time you come back to get another passport, you can see that it's raised a little bit higher, and then you come back again and it's done. So from my point of view, it's like all these buildings going boom, 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 appearing everywhere. So it's interesting. There's 4 or 5 new ones.
The condo boom coming to Ottawa.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess once people, the risk of separation decreased enough that people thought it's a good investment for real estate. They just started making all these giant buildings here.
Yeah, it's great.
Like you've seen around the world, yeah.
What are some things you like to do around town here?
Usually I just go on long walks. So I'll go walk all the way across the river and into the Gatineau region and across. Sometimes I do some snowshoeing around here. And going out to the pubs as well is quite fun.
Does it still surprise you how beautiful of a city Ottawa is compared to other parts in the world that you've been to, or is it still just home?
Well, I was born here and I lived here at various times, so I kind of have a soft spot for Ottawa. But there's so many other places that are very nice as well. That's part of the reason I can't stop traveling, is I see beauty everywhere, and most of the world is friendly people and really interesting things to see.
Yeah, that's the main thing I've learned through the traveling, and we'll get into that as well. And your favorite pub being the Lieutenant's?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pump,
I can't see that going anywhere. There's a couple of places that have changed in and around there. Like I'm sure Oz Cafe right beside it was never there back the last time you were home, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, they're expanding as well, so I guess they're doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there many cities and countries you've been to? Is there anything that sticks out that you could have said, wow, that would have been nice growing up with in Ottawa, or Ottawa could really use anything like that?
Well, I've noticed I use the public transport of all the cities. So I've been in, well over 1,000, maybe even 2,000 or more cities. And I've used the public transport in all of them. And Ottawa's public transport leaves something to be desired, unfortunately, I have to say.
Oh, really?
And there's some very good public transport. Like the Colombian cities, very easy to get around. Like Bogota, Medellin, very easy to get around. And even the big Chinese cities. Yeah, you just get the underground train systems, or like Bogota has a bus system that really, really works well. Dedicated lanes and everything like that. So Ottawa's comparatively difficult. So you have to place yourself somewhere near the downtown, I suppose, and then be able to walk around. That's the only way to do Ottawa.
We're hoping that the LRT will make it a little easier, but still that doesn't branch out to as many places as, say, the LRTs in Melbourne and Australia.
Or even a lot of the cities in the former Soviet Empire. They have really good underground train systems. Pyongyang in North Korea has an excellent one. One of the deepest in the world. It's even deeper than the one in Kiev. And the one in Kiev is extraordinarily deep. Like, it's several escalators, long ones in a row that you have to go down under the hill for the deepest station.
Oh, wow.
But the Pyongyang one is made to resist atomic attack, so it's unbelievable.
Really?
Deep.
How deep? How many escalators would it take to get you down?
I think it's like 3 or 4 in a row.
Wow.
The Kiev one's more fun because there's a local tradition of couples kissing on the escalators. So as you're going by,
like just
a lot of people do
it the whole time.
Well, I don't know, not like get a room type, but like kissing as they go down the escalator is like a local tradition there.
That's a lot of work.
That's interesting.
And then you're just right behind them.
Now the Pyongyang one, I'm not sure if they're running too many stations. I think they were only running a few when they're showing it to people who come in to show they've got the whole system running. But it seems to me they're not running their whole system. But yeah, it would definitely it can resist atomic attack down there. It's really, really deep.
Really weird. Interesting.
Wild.
So how did, I know you've answered this question, I know several times probably the past couple of weeks, but how did, because I've traveled 1 year at a time, and it's really hard to go for that second year. It's really to break away. How did you start? Like, was it supposed to be a long time to start out, or?
I was originally intending to go to all the world, but then my assessment of how practical that was.
How old were you when you started?
Very early 20s. It might have been like 1990 or something. It was a long time ago.
So early 20s.
Yeah, and I was doing a lot of North America at the start, and like a tiny bit of Europe, but mostly North America, and I was gaining some skills, because North America is a good sort of training ground for your travel skills if you're really, really young. But then my first more difficult one was Central America. And there it was super cheap, like Nicaragua just after the war, 3 cents a night for the hotel room.
3 cents a
That
night.
was quality. Or the expensive one, like right in the capital, Managua, I was getting for $1 a night. And this was, not much for a hotel room. It was basically just sort of crumbling mud walls, a bit of a bed there. And they had, the only thing new in the room was a plastic shower curtain, one of the ones you buy at a Chinese market for a couple bucks. But they've been so impressed with the little piece of paper that showed a woman taking a shower that had been used in the package to sell the shower curtain that they actually framed this and put it on the wall. That was the only art in the $1 a day hotel room.
Wow.
So a lot of it was living outside of the backpack. What did you bring on your first travels to get out there?
Well, I've had the same backpack the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's never been stolen, so I've had the exact same
That's
one.
good luck.
Yeah, and also, the shabbier the backpack, the less likely it is to be stolen.
Yeah.
So, because imagine the thief was on top of the bus, and you had to put your luggage up there. Okay, he's looking around. What should he what should he grab and run away with? It's going to be one of these glowing new backpacks. Because most people's
That's
backpacks
true.
look like it's just out of the shop, essentially. And they got almost like a glowing aura around them, saying, "There's computers and cameras in here."
Yeah.
And there is too. So the thief grabs that and runs off. Whereas my shabby pack looks like one of the local things. So, in fact, this actually once it almost backfired on me. I was in Peru. And I was going to do the Machu Picchu hike for the first time.
When did you first do that in Machu Picchu?
It might have been could have been 2008 or 2009,
Okay, so
something
not
like that.
kind of recent. Okay.
Yeah, pretty recent. But we arrived near the trailhead where you start, and I was going to be, the people that unloaded the packs, and mine wasn't there. And I was going, oh, and I'm looking around for it. And finally, I was trying to use my Spanish to talk, and I found it had been unloaded into where the local stuff was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so where the baskets and the chickens and things like that. And my pack was in there because they assumed it must be some local Peruvian.
So there's not a big Canada flag sewed onto it?
No. It's just looks nice and shabby, quite filthy.
Have you did any other big climbs?
I did. I've done a lot of stuff in Nepal.
Yeah.
I did
Base camp.
Kilimanjaro. I went up. Yeah, I did the base camp of Everest. I didn't go up Everest because they actually want a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
They want I think it's $6,000 or $7,000 just to climb a little bit up the mountain.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's outside of my budget range.
That's a little costly, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess there's some people who want to say they've gone up to the third camp or the fourth or whatever.
But you made it to first, so it's still base camp.
Yeah, it was base camp there, and the interesting thing there is you had a hotel there. It's quite cheap, but they had a lot of these big beer bottles left over from where they were selling beer, and it's almost the size of a wine bottle. But they didn't know what to do with the empties, so they decided they would make a wall of beer bottles to keep the wind away. And eventually, they had this enormous wall of these brown beer bottles. And you could position yourself in such a way that there's a wall of beer bottles in front of you, and that's all you see except for Everest poking up over the beer bottles. So you can have,
neat.
if you want to take a photo of that, you can get an Everest beer photo.
All right, on.
Did you take a lot of photos on your travels?
Not really, because I'd have to meet a photographer, which sometimes I would, or I'd have to convince someone to send me some photos.
Through email?
Because I didn't carry anything of value.
Yeah.
I do a lot of countries where if you have even something worth a few dollars, someone's going to steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have any camera, no computer, no nothing.
What was it like traveling through the start of the internet to now? Did you see the internet evolve across all the different countries?
Yeah, it was a bit different when people used to communicate with postcards. And then when the internet came in, some people were starting to use that. But it was kind of hit and miss. Like sometimes you'd be in a country, there'd be no internet cafe, or it wouldn't work.
Of course.
Or the people you were trying to communicate with didn't know how to use it. So, but after a while, people were emailing. And as a result of that, sometimes you'd meet someone or keep in contact with someone a bit longer than what you would before. But then the real change was when Facebook came in. Because then you have, instead of with email, the half-life for pen palship with someone you met while traveling with email was about a year. So you have a 50% drop off, after a year. But with Facebook, it's just indefinite. Because you can see their photos and you can kind of keep in touch. And also it'll warn you if you're in the same place. So if you happen to be in, you met someone at one place in the world and you see them in another, they'll be warned and you can say, hey, let's go out.
That's been one of my
that's
favorite
cool,
parts
for
about
sure.
traveling when was with Facebook. I still have many of my friends that I met. And we still keep in touch and still have visited each other. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back with Mike Spencer Bown. We're just going to take a break, listen to one more song from Tindervox. This one is called Sirens, and we'll be right back. All right, so that was Sirens by Tindervox, and we're right back with Mike Spencer Bown. So right, so that was Sirens by Tindervox, and we're right back with Mike Spencer Bown. So we're going to try to stump you with some questions. But our goal here in this journalistic podcast that we do is to uncover questions that you might have not been
I
asked
got
before.
one question, and I'm sure you've been asked it before. How do you cover the expenses of traveling for everything?
Okay,
You've been traveling for 23 years. I mean, that's got to... I mean, I go traveling for a couple of weeks, and then I'm working for another year or two so I can do it again. But
okay. Well, the thing is, your initial flight to begin the traveling is the expensive part.
Yeah.
But after that, if you live like the locals do, you can bring your cost down to really, really low. Like if you're sleeping in mud huts or just taking advantage of someone's offer, you can sleep in my house or whatever, or camping. You can really live cheaply. But there are, as you know, unavoidable expenses. Like there's certain distant islands, like for instance, you want to see Easter Island. You want to see the gorillas when you're in Rwanda, of course. You know, you want to go on a safari when you're in East Africa. So in order to meet these costs, you need to be able to figure out some way to make extra cash. And I used to use like entrepreneurial activity.
Okay.
So like, you know, for instance, if I noticed like there's one product I had manufactured that I was able to ship on wholesale and make a bunch of money from it. And it was a carpenter's box from Scotland. And it was found in a peat mog from 1,000 years ago. And a very nice stylized heather and berry design on it. And I thought that would make a perfect window box. So I went over to Asia and I got 5,000 of them or more. It could have been 10,000. I can't remember the exact number. But I had them made and shipped. And I just sold them wholesale. And I was getting them for $7, selling them for 42.
oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and I just ship them around the world and sell them. And the thing is, with this kind of thing, you just come in and say, I want them made. And you come in once to see the prototype.
So you're in China when...
Yeah, I had this one done in Surabaya, I think is where it was manufactured. But I just come in there and say, yeah, I want them made, and then I can see them just before they're shipped. And then they go around the sea for a long time. In the meantime, you're traveling between all of this. So it was only about a month of actual work in a year.
Yeah,
so
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so I did 4 or 5 years of this, and then at the end I had enough money that I could just use it to cover my expenses for the things that you can't avoid for the traveling.
Did you
that's amazing.
Did you travel far from the factories, I guess, when they're
yeah, you can go anywhere you want while they're making it. It might take them a few months to make the stuff.
Okay.
As you're just traveling around. Then it might take a few months to get it shipped over. And then, of course, you're traveling around. Then you just arrive, wholesale it, and off you go.
So you're never in any of these countries. I know a lot of people, they go different places, like, friends that travel over to Australia and they live there for a year. They end up working on local farms and whatnot. Did you do that in any different countries?
No, I've done full-time traveling.
Yeah.
So for instance, even for these few years that I did some actual work, it's only like a month. And the rest was all traveling. So that's essentially full-time. Because I wasn't taking weekends off travel. So if you look at the actual amount of travel, it was pretty much full-on.
Yeah. Now, weather plays a key role in travel because, there's some very rainy seasons in several countries. Were you ever found in a possible disaster zone? Or somewhere where you had to...
A lot of disaster zones.
Well,
so
or where you had to help out with aid or help out with rebuilding?
Well, there's one where I heard the rebuilding didn't go too well, and this was the city of Bam. So I was in Bam in Iran, 2003, and I just looked at the Arg of Bam, which is their famous mud fort, and I thought, okay, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I was actually there with a woman who was there to photograph the underground party scene of Iran. So I'd gone to a few of those underground parties with her, and it was quite interesting to see the Iranians, throw off all this chador and hijab and everything else they might have, all the clothes they wear on the street. And underneath is just mini skirts, and they're partying and calling their alcohol dealer, arriving with his secret alcohol he's selling to them. But I didn't do very much of that. I just kind of looked at it. I was there more to see the country, but I went to a few. And then when I was in Bam, I was looking around there and thought, okay, I've seen enough, and I moved on. And then just a very short time later, might have been a few days, I saw in the paper, they showed the picture of Bam, entirely destroyed, everyone killed.
Oh,
wow.
So the guest house I was in, the Akbar guest house, collapsed, killing the guests. And luckily I was out of there. Now, I heard the reconstruction didn't work too well because the government decided they were going to fix up all of these buildings to give people, again, a place to live because there was maybe, I don't know how many, it's tens of thousands killed, but there were a few tens of thousands still alive out in the desert. So the government said to the construction workers in Tehran, I want you to each donate some workers to come and live in the camp and go fix up the city. So, of course, what would happen in this situation is the construction companies would say, oh, no, unpaid workers, and we have to lose them. So they actually sent over all their worst construction workers.
Oh, no.
And, of course, these are the guys who are addicted to heroin because they have a massive heroin problem there.
Yeah.
So you got all these junky construction workers arrive to live in the same camp with all the people who've been sort of banished to the desert until their houses get rebuilt. And, of course, they got everyone involved in heroin. And then they also all got HIV/AIDS because they were sharing needles.
Oh wow!
So it was like
awful.
So the city was entirely destroyed. It's like a double or triple disaster.
Wow.
But luckily for me, I'd already been out in Shiraz at that time.
Yeah.
But I had another
very interesting time to be in Iran and Iraq.
And I did Iraq not too far after that. I dressed as an Iraqi and didn't speak English so that no one would recognize that I was a foreigner. And then I hitchhiked around Iraq during the war, during Operation Iron Grip.
I'm not going to lie. Looking at you, you do kind of look like George Bush.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I've heard some other things too. Like some people were saying I look like Mitt Romney. I don't know, but
No,
I'm not sure. No,
George Bush. I can't.
Did you have to disguise yourself in a lot of different countries that you went? Like, I mean, clearly you like to
I couldn't
stay
disguise-
local, but
I couldn't look like anything other than a foreigner when I was in Afghanistan. I tried dressing like a northern Afghan, and guys would just come over and speak to me in English right away.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, which was a little bit disconcerting because I was taking roads that were, sometimes attacked by the Taliban. So there's one road I took where they said there's a 30% chance I'd lose my head if I took this road. And I ended up taking it twice. So I went into the Central Mountains with it, explored the Central Mountains. I came
By
back.
yourself?
Yeah,
Just driving by yourself?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in local transport, actually. I was in a four-wheel drive van. It's actually one of the roughest roads, that road leading into where the Bamayan area.
Yeah.
Really, really rough. I mean, it's the only time I've seen a rougher road was over Blue Mountain in northern Kenya when you're trying to get into Lake Turkana. It was equally rough, but otherwise, it was so rough it actually tore one of the wheels off our four-wheel drive van. And I was
really?
thinking, oh no, who has to go get that wheel? Because of course it went skittering off through the minefields on either side of the road.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors with somebody for that.
Yeah.
one.
So who went and got it?
Well, luckily, as our van was skidding to a halt, I could see the wheel went all the way up the mountain. Then for some reason, it looked like it was going to wobble, not falling. Oh, it actually came back down again.
Nice.
It actually landed exactly where we had to cram it back on. Now, we couldn't do much of a job of cramming it on, so it was leaking, various kinds of oil and goo. But we managed to, get to the next town and get it a bit more fixed up, and then carry on into the Central Mountains.
Jeez.
Was there many other times where, because, different boats, many methods of travel you've taken, where you were equally possibly afraid for your life going, oh, well, it was a good run,
I had one, I can't remember exactly when it was, sometime in the mid-90s, or maybe even late 90s. But I was out in the Sea of Sumbawa, and I was on a top-heavy wooden junk. And I signed up for a 4-day trip that was supposed to go from Labuan Bajo on Flores all the way over to Lombok. And this is all the island chain of Nusa Tenggara. But the first day went well, and we stopped off for a little bit of recreation. So we stopped off to see some dragons, and I saw one go and snap the
Some dragons?
Dragons?
Komodo dragon.
Komodo dragons. Okay.
There's only one dragon actually existent. The other ones are mythological. As far as I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, this dragon, it lunged at a deer and it broke off its back legs.
Holy.
Yeah, and the deer was trying to lurch toward me as if I was going to help it, on its bone stumps. And I was going, oh, sorry, deer, like I can't really help out here. In fact, I'm not sure I want to be around as this lizard attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it carried on ripping into it. And we just left because we thought maybe we'd be disturbing its feeding. So, but we got back on the boat and we carried on. And then I noticed that the ocean became as smooth as glass. And I thought, wow, I never saw this before. Like, there's not even a single wave as far as the eye can see in any direction. But then afterward, the waves started building and building and building. And then it was a raging typhoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a typhoon that later I heard from guys in Europe that it had put several huge car ferries right to the bottom with all hands lost. And here I was out in the little wooden top-heavy junk.
Jesus.
Yeah, and in fact, I heard the most foolish question ever asked by a tourist in my life that I've ever heard. And this happened on that junk during that typhoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine you're clinging onto the gunwales. You can hardly move. Even to get to the loo, you'd have to run and hold on for dear life and really take a big effort to get there. So basically, you just clung to the side and hoped you weren't flung overboard. But you could see all the raging waves because there was phosphorescence in the water. So you'd see these gigantic waves roiling in about to slam you. And they'd be glowing blue all along the top of them. So it was quite pretty, actually. So I was enjoying the sights. But there were some other foreigners on the boat. It wasn't all just locals. And there was one guy calling out that he wanted some attention. He really wanted someone to attend to him. And finally, one of the crew left off taking care of the engine, which I was a little bit worried that he left that off because, when the propeller would come out of the water, it would over-rev. And they were worried the engine would cut out, and that's what they were using to keep us facing correctly for each giant wave, barreling down on us. So, but anyway, one guy thought it's some major emergency, so I could see him take the effort to actually get over, even though it's a very short distance. He had to run and grab hold of some wooden beam, and then run and grab again. And I thought, wow, has he ever scaled? Timing it exactly between the waves. Mm-hmm. And finally, he's breathing quite hard, but he managed to get right beside this foreigner. And so I was listening in. I'm curious, what's the emergency? And the guy said, we were promised 3 meals a day on this boat trip. So where is my chicken and rice?
Oh boy!
And the crewman was just like, what? Like, what kind of imbecile, could even talk about this? Because imagine there was a little area where you could cook, but now imagine trying to get a fire going. Now imagine you put a pot. Let's say you did get a fire going. You put a pot of water to cook some rice.
Yeah,
now as soon as you put it up, half a second later, bang! It is on the roof. Now it's on the floor, and now you've fallen over too.
You're scolded.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous. But eventually they did get us into a little passage called Bima between some giant cliffs. And we were being driven up against these cliffs. You could see the glowing blue of the typhoon waves slamming them. But it was they were trying to time it exactly so we pushed into this little passage with cliffs on both sides. And once we got in there, it was only gale force winds. And the whole crew was cheering like, yeah, we survived. And in fact, we gave up on the 4-day boat trip idea. So we put into port, and that was that.
Wow.
Wow, you still survived. Now, just a couple questions of where you were at different times, because I think you remember. Also, there's many holidays. You've been to many holidays around the world where anywhere you didn't even know and it came up the next day and it was a major holiday where you're like, holy crap, this is amazing.
I think I've had, sometimes I've been at full moon parties and things like that. But
Thailand?
I've done those. I stopped going to them actually once they got... once people started coming over, package tourists started getting these boat rides over from Koh Samui, and I think it got spoiled at that point.
Yeah.
But I used to go to those things for holidays, and they're quite fun. In fact, the funnest thing was the Friday before the party, because everyone's still got a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But if you wait until the actual party itself, you've got certain Europeans, especially are notorious for this. They go to the apotheques, like the places where you can get drugs, and they buy various powerful stimulants that you couldn't really buy over the counter in Canada.
Yeah.
And then they just stay awake the whole time. And after a while, they're almost like zombies or something.
Yeah.
So as the party goes on, it's not so fun. But the first day before it is quite fun.
I had a lot of fun that night before as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was great running into different Canadians at that time.
Yeah.
Because I was with a lot of British people leading up to that party, but there's so many people that come in, so it was a lot of fun doing that.
Mm-hmm. And I saw once I've only been for a very short time to the Vatican. So here's a country I didn't even spend a day in. I spent like maybe 2/3 of a day, just going to the Vatican Museum, looking around the building. But by complete coincidence, I think it was Pope John Paul II came out onto the balcony and gave a speech right when I was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought, okay, that's pretty good. We're doing pretty good.
Which country did you live in the longest? Or stay in
I don't think I've been to Kazakhstan quite a few times. A lot to do there. China, I did 3 trips. Oh, India, I did quite a long time. I've probably been there a year and a half. I mean, they've never had a cultural revolution, so there's a lot to see.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one story from India. Okay, because I thought it was quite amusing. But I was taking a train north, and I was going to go to Gujarat and some other areas like that. But I was going to stop in Diu first, and I was traveling with a girlfriend. And the people on the train said, "Oh no, you made a big mistake. Well, when you get to Diu, there's no way you'll ever get a hotel." They said, "Well," and I said, "Well, I can go to pretty cheap hotels." And they said, "No, you'll not even get a hotel that's only acceptable to an Indian day laborer." And I said, "Wow, why is that?" And they said, "Well, the cricket's on, and Diu is the only place within hundreds of kilometers where you can drink beer." So everything's been booked solid for months, and there's absolutely no way you'll get anywhere to stay. And I thought, oh, well, I feel bad to hear that, but, I'm on the train already.
Got to do it.
Right? So finally, I get off there, and this guy runs up to me as soon as I get out of the station, and he says, "Do you want a hotel?" And I'm a little bit suspicious because I think, "Do you want a hotel?" Okay, like something $100 or whatever. So I say, "How much does it cost?" And he says, $8. And I thought, okay, it's a bit expensive, but whatever, I'll look at it. Then I look at the hotel, and my girlfriend's very impressed, and so am I. It is the cleanest hotel room I'd ever seen in India. So it looked like the mattress was new, the pillows were new, the floor had been scrubbed, the rug was new, the walls had been scrubbed, the ceiling had been scrubbed. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll take it for 3 days. So then we step out onto the street, and I thought everyone would be talking about the cricket. No, they're not. They're saying, "Did you hear about the horrible murder?" And I say, "No, I didn't hear about it."
Oh, great.
They say, "But yeah, I got drunk and he stabbed his friend to death. Guts and blood everywhere." And I go, I'm a bit suspicious. Where did this murder take place? And he goes, "Oh, you can't see it from here, but it's this hotel that's around the corner there." I go, "Oh yeah, I know that hotel." Yeah.
Oh, well, the murder's already happened.
That's what we decided. So I was talking to my girlfriend at the time. We said, "Do you want to move out?" And we'd have to leave this place. And she said, "Well, everything's new, so." Yeah, we stayed in the murder room.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we almost made a further mistake. This was like a day of possible mistakes. So then we rented push bikes, just regular bikes, and we were biking around the island. And we came past this barbecue grill on the beach. And I thought, oh, look, a free barbecue grill. I'm pretty close to the fish market, too. So I said, let's go get a fish, and we'll get some vegetables, and we'll come back. We can buy some wood, and we'll cook it. But then, just before we're about to leave, I was, no, I'm actually suspicious of something. Just wait here a second. I'm going to climb to the top of that sand dune.
Yeah.
So I climbed up a sand dune, and I go, oh, no. There was like a little Indian temple there with a little flag on top of it. And it's the top of that flag I'd noticed. And there was a path from the temple leading to the barbecue grill. And I came back and said, barbecue's off. This is not a barbecue grill. This is a cremation grill for an Indian temple.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking, oh, no, if we'd cooked a fish on that.
Wow, they would have been somewhat upset, eh?
Yeah, so it was a close call there, too. But luckily, nothing.
Luckily, you thought that's a skill that you get to go, if it's too good to be true, it might just not
exactly.
be.
Yeah, you got to be a bit suspicious in some of these places.
Yeah.
It's worked out well.
So what's next?
Next, I'm supposed to go to, well, I don't really have enough money to live in Canada.
Yeah.
Unless I can manage to sell a book. So then I could probably afford rent here in Canada.
I was just going to say, you have so many great stories. You must be thinking of perhaps sitting down for a bit and writing something for someone.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I have a lot of, I pick up a lot of stories due to, trying to have the maximum fun while traveling. And I guess this is a way, if I can get a book written and sell enough of them, I'll even be able to afford to live in Canada, which, as you know, here is super expensive.
It is.
$16 or more for a restaurant meal and hundreds of dollars for rent. I mean, it's really, really expensive. So,
well, you got 2 sales right here, I'm sure of it. So.
Okay, well, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. So you might be going to Vancouver, I guess?
Yeah, I'll be making my way across Canada, so I'm going to go out to like Okotoks and Canmore to visit my brothers, and then out to Vancouver to have a drink with my friend I traditionally have a drink with when I go there. I go down to the Canby and then we have a beer. He's working for Fisheries and Oceans, but he likes to travel a lot and do surfing.
Oh, that'll be great. So we
awesome.
look forward to hearing a lot more from you.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you a big hockey fan? Do you ever take that with
I
you?
actually couldn't follow any sports in the course of my travel. Like once I was staying in this sort of hotel called the Ideal Hotel in Cameroon, and it was not too much of a brothel compared to most African hotels.
Yeah.
But there they had a hotel in the room, and I could watch rugby. So I watched a few weeks of rugby once when I was waiting for a visa.
But that's it. So no World Cup, Olympics, World Cups.
I miss all of that. I'm in places without communication whatsoever. So sometimes I find them near a cafe, but even then they don't often work. Like the African ones, not necessarily. Usually in the capital city, you can get a little bit of video or something. But
That's got to feel kind of nice to be off the grid, though, so to speak, right?
And this is totally on the grid, so this is
total
contrast.
Yeah, but now I'm sort of surrounded by technology. I need it now, so to handle like newspaper or other kind of interviews, I've got to have a computer. So
A lot in China, right?
Yeah, I was doing some interviews from China, and difficult to do. They ask a lot of kind of questions you'd ask some kind of international scholar in some cases.
Yeah.
Like, what's my opinion of different political ideologies from the various countries around the world? Like something you'd see on a test for history or for sociology or something. Yeah, so I really had to puzzle hard for some of the Chinese questions, but yeah, they've been fun anyway.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much
thanks a lot
for joining us. And
we're glad we caught you before you take off again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. And we'll just get into some local events coming up this week. All right, so for events this weekend, on Friday night, you have the kitchen party at Rochester Pub. You have Pup playing at Gabba Hay. They were recently voted CBC Radio 3's Live Band of the Year, so that's going to be pretty exciting. You also have the Grills and Glam Christmas Miracle happening at Babylon. On Saturday, you have Fevers and Shannon Rose playing at Press Cafe, so that's going to be for Eva B's fundraiser to send her to a cooking school in Ireland, and there's going to be fabulous prizes to be won there. Only $10 to see 2 great bands there. You also have Loon Choir and Pony Girl playing at Black Sheep Inn in Wakefield. And also you have the Electric Powwow Christmas edition at Babylon to see A Tribe Called Red there. On Sunday, you have the first annual Unsung Hero Christmas Charity Gala at Lagos, and that's only $25. That is not too bad. And there is also the third annual Christmas Market at the Museum of Civilization, Friday to Sunday. So you'll get to see 50 local vendors. Of course, shop local so we can grow the local economy. And next week's episode, I hope you join us, will be our year in review, as well as our New Year's Eve preview. So we're going to have a lot of big players in the Toronto scene for that. So join us then. We're going to finish up with one last song from Tindervox. This is Eve's Rib. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week, everyone.
hanging on to faces in the crowd. You'll have to learn on your own. Give me money in my car. I'm in lieu of something bigger than your little golden mind. Speaking out and lying for you. What do you do? Say, casting that first stone at your daughters. Yeah, you keep things that way. It's muddy in the ground. We're floating